I'm Donny.
And I'm Anthony.
And we make up the GW Branding Group, here to bring you the Off the Ground podcast. The podcast where we interview entrepreneurs and find out how they got their businesses off the ground.
Hey, this is Anthony and Donny, and we are with the Off the Ground podcast with the GW Branding Group. And we have a special guest, Micah Morgan, here with us today. He's going to go over the world of general contracting with us. And the Off the Ground podcast is all about bringing on successful business owners and interviewing them on how they got their business moving forward and how they got it off the ground. So I'll let Donny introduce himself, and then we'll go right to Micah.
So I'm Donny, co-founder of the GW Branding Group. I'm the second half, and we're just really happy to have Micah Morgan on today.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. My name is Micah Morgan, CEO of Red Cloud Contracting, owner, founder as well. Excited to chat.
Definitely. So we're going to jump right into your origin story. During this podcast, we're going to go over a few segments of different business operations, kind of how you've been able to be the one with all hats, per se. So tell us a little bit about your origin story, how you got interested in general contracting, construction, and kind of how you got started.
Yeah, so as far as like the world of construction, I mean, I can think back, as a kid, really enjoying playing with Legos and Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys, all that kind of stuff. I always loved building things. So I've just had a propensity for that. And then, I did the college thing, 4-year degree. I even did some graduate work. But I just always felt pulled towards working with my hands, being outside, working with tools, materials. And so, it was really, different summer jobs in high school and college that, I made more doing that than flipping burgers, right? And plus, it was more fun.
Yeah.
With many different types of jobs I've had, carpentry and building stuff has always been pulling me back. So, I don't know. It's like I guess I was born with it, kind of thing. It's just
definitely.
Yeah.
Take us to the time when, kind of the fast forward, I guess, to, starting out in the, or starting on your own. Fast forward us to that time. Take us to that. What was going through your mind when you wanted to launch Red Cloud, and how did that all start out?
So, we're actually coming up on our 5-year anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Since we established the business back in 2018.
Yeah.
We're 23 now. Yeah, 2018. So as far as the general contracting side of it, because I'd always just worked as like a laborer, or a carpenter, painter, doing those kinds of things in previous jobs. It was actually back in 2013, so almost 10 years ago, when my wife and I bought our current house. It was a house that needed like insane amount of work. And it was through that project of rebuilding this house that really got me a heck of a lot more familiar with like what it means to be a general contractor. I understood the trades and the craft, but then like hiring the subs and dealing with the city and going through inspections and doing all that kind of stuff. That had been there for 10 years, and then 5 years ago, I was working a full-time job, and as my wife and I were thinking, what do we want the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years to look like for us and our family? I just felt that I felt called to look into what it would mean to start a construction business. It was what motivated me to start. It was quite a few things. It's really legacy, opportunity, not feeling confined, working a 9 to 5 in an office somewhere.
Yeah, that freedom
Yeah.
element is big for a lot of people. I think motivating them to start their own business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds awesome, but what challenges do you face kind of going from working for somebody or even doing odd jobs to really going on your own? I mean, what did you face just starting out?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I first left my previous employer, it felt like every day was like a weekend. It was just like it's so great. Like I get to like manage my time and making all my own decisions and things like that, and getting to meet people and it was really exciting, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like the beginning stages of a dating relationship, right? It's super exciting,
The
and it's,
honeymoon phase.
the passion, all that kind of stuff. And not to say that ever fully went away, but certainly things change when reality hits, when it's like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that there's like all these other things that have to be done. Like when you're working for a large organization, they have all these departments and they have all these people within the departments, right? And all these tasks and duties and things, and that all has to get done. So, and it's still, still a challenge that I face. My title says CEO, but I'm also like COO and CFO and job site supervisor and HR. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hats. So it's really managing all the spinning plates.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, at least for sure, over the last couple years, is what's really important is finding people to help support in taking off some of the responsibilities.
Yeah.
For example, marketing, right? That's
Yeah.
that's how we know each
That's
other.
where we come in.
Yeah.
But I was wondering too, as a guy who you've been in business now for 5 years, all this time you've really worn all the hats primarily.
Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of tough to let go of some of the control? Because that's the flip side of the coin. At least you oversee everything, even though you have to do it all. Is it kind of tough to offshore some of those responsibilities, or is it more of a relief?
Yeah. So definitely both. It's scary because when we get used to doing something and you have your own way of doing it, becoming very particular. For example, like being on the job site. If we're doing a remodeling project or something. Obviously at the start of my business, I was the one on the job, working with the job. I might have a couple helpers and stuff. And so to bring somebody in to then trust them to, manage the job and a couple other helpers for them and, communicating with the customer and doing the job correctly and to code and all that kind of stuff. Granted, I still check in, I still go to job sites, but that was it's a scary moment starting to give up some of that responsibility. Now it's not like completely abdicating it and just not even ever thinking about it.
Right.
Still something I think about, but so at first it was scary to bring in, because I've got a couple guys now that basically run the jobs from a day-to-day standpoint. Scary at first, and then that relief definitely comes, so I can come and do things like this.
Yeah.
I've got a couple crews actually out there working on jobs right now. Great guys. So it takes time. It takes time to find those right people. I'm sure we'll talk about some of those other things later, but yeah.
Definitely. So what are some key lessons you could give to somebody who's in the general contracting industry, just starting out, or someone who's thinking about moving into that industry? What are some lessons you can give them from your journey so far?
So if somebody's thinking about potentially leaving their
Becoming a general contractor.
Yeah, just a couple lessons that you've kind of found along the way of establishing your businesses
Sure.
as you've gotten in.
So what I would say is one of the things that I've had to learn to do more of is building the relationships with others in receiving help for things. Even if it's just advice, right? So I'm a part of a small business group called Convene. It's an advisory board group that we meet once a month. And on my board is another general contractor, just like myself. We pretty much do a lot of the same kind of things. And so at the face of it, it might look like we're competitors. We're really not.
Right.
We're friends, we talk, we share, struggles and different things that work and different things that don't. I was literally talking to him yesterday about, just some things that came up and just, so really for any business, but in the world of general contracting, what I've found is, the other contractors out there are not enemies.
Right.
They can be friends. You just got to reach out. So I've had to get over myself and just make some phone calls and ask questions because I don't know it all, right?
Yeah.
So it's admitting that and then finding the right people to come around, support, and asking for advice and things like that.
Definitely. So, knowing that, let's kind of go into your branding and how you've started to develop Red Cloud and your journey through that, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to starting your own brand, getting it, off the ground, and just developing that. What are just go into your journey on your marketing and your branding more per se, and what you learned through that starting out, and
how do you position yourself, amongst all the, like you said, other contractors?
Yeah, and that's still a work in progress.
Yep.
And from what I understand about branding, branding is how the market perceives you. So for me to create a brand or my brand, it's me doing certain things in hopes that that's how it's being perceived by the marketplace.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would say differentiate, Red Cloud from some other contracting companies out there, is the element of really focusing on the relationship. Some of my are the best jobs we've done with some of my clients. It's like we're friends. You get that friend feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And in business, we'll say this at BNI, right? Our small business network group. People do business with those they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
Well, who do you call? What do you call someone that you know, like, and trust? It's a friend.
Yeah.
And it's even in our mission statement. Building those relationships, being that friend, so that we can create better places to live, to work, and to play. And so that's that underlies a lot of what we do. And so, in terms of brand, what I would hope people would respond with when they see my logo or they hear Red Cloud Contracting, your friendly neighborhood contractor, right? It's sort of my tagline.
Yeah.
We want to be that friend to the community and those around us, creating a better world. So that's as far as branding, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So, and for, the viewers and for people listening, I think one of the key things that you said is it's always a work in progress. We're always developing the brand, and it's something that the market will tell you what your brand is, and then you have to go off of that and kind of rework that. So,
right.
For people who are starting out, what is a good way for them to start to get their brand out there as a general contractor? Someone who doesn't have as much experience in their brand, in that development, as someone who's maybe a year into their business, or just trying to think, hey, how am I going to make this work? What are some good key pieces of advice for branding for that?
So one thing that I found really impactful, and it was actually a book recommended to me by a friend of mine who owns a small business and is doing really well for himself. This was a year and a half ago. I read the book by Simon Sinek called Start with Why. And in the book, it's basically, and what Simon Sinek would say is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So in understanding your why, and having read the book and then worked through the workbook called Find Your Why, it's what I've discovered, that as I'm out there in the marketplace doing business, I understand why I'm doing it. And it's always more than just making money. Like, okay, yes, we are a for-profit business. Profit it's important because that's what keeps the lights on and keeps everything moving forward. But my ultimate why is, like as I shared in the mission statement of the business, is to build relationships, be a friend to the community, and create better places to live, work, and play. That's my why, right? And so my recommendation for someone who's looking to start out as a general contractor or in any business situation, read that book. I mean, it was a really impactful book. Or listen to an audio. I did both, actually. Because it challenged me to think through things differently. Because I was just so worried about, well, what am I going to do? set that aside for right now and figure out why you're even doing it in the first place. Was a challenge for me. So, but it helped. So that would be my recommendation.
That's awesome. And obviously, it sounds like the strategy you employ is to become friends with somebody and to really, get to know them and really make sure you're in business with the right people.
Correct.
But I'd kind of like to know too, how you go from how you kind of made this leap from word of mouth business and getting connections that way and jobs that way to, even getting jobs from your website or from your other marketing channels. Because I think that's probably a big leap for people.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's other folks that I've worked for that that I've known in the past in the world of the trades. One guy I'm thinking in particular, great guy, he's a great craftsman, but he'll brag about how the fact that he doesn't spend anything on marketing. It's all word of mouth. Granted, this individual is now late 50s, early 60s, and he's still working on the job. And there's a lot of great contractors out there that do that. They are the business, and they've been doing it for decades. Love those guys. That's not the direction I want to go per se. Like, I'm almost 40. I'm already feeling, in my body of all the work that I've done over the last decade or so. So the word of mouth. I say that to say that I'm open to different ideas on how to get the word out there. And now that I understand why I'm really doing what I do in my business, apart from just providing a remodeling service or being a builder, or building a house or doing whatever, it's really to help impact people's lives. I want to broadcast that message. And in today's world, that requires folks like yourself to help get that message out there on the website, on social media and things like that. And so that was I wasn't afraid to explore what that might look like. Because the thing with word of mouth, it's great. Referrals are fantastic. But it's all at the whim of, at the moment, whether that previous client feels like referring you. It's kind of, you're giving control over to someone else to, run the marketing of my business. I don't want to do that. And so, what can we do more of so that, if you think of it as like a faucet, I have some element of control over of the flow of what's happening in my business. If we can figure that out, that's, as you guys know, that's one of my goals for this year, is just to keep exploring that.
That's true, and now with podcasts and videos and all the digital marketing channels, it's more possible than ever to put your message out there.
That's right.
And put the message that you want to put out there.
Right.
So it's
exactly.
pretty cool that you can have that control.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. So now that we know a little bit more about, kind of your thoughts on branding, marketing, let's talk about like product and service development. Because I think, from a standpoint of service development, there's a lot of different elements that can go into that. And there's a lot of, questions on how you develop your service, especially when it comes to general contracting and when it comes to, what people want, what you can do. A lot of people have different focuses, whether you see like basement remodelers, you see a lot of people that only do kitchens, or maybe they only build homes. So for the service development aspect, what have you kind of seen and what's been successful for you from developing that service?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I thought a lot on last year. Granted, we're still a new business. I mean, coming up on our 5-year anniversary, so we're still figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
One thing that I started to learn pretty quickly, like when in the world of general contracting, that can mean so many different things. I mean, it's in the title, general contractor. It's just general, just some generalization, right? Not necessarily a general like a general would be like a, to the troops, right?
Yeah.
A generality.
Yeah, generality. So yeah, I found myself becoming frustrated. This was last year or so, in regards to like all the different types of jobs that I was like chasing, right? Repair jobs, handyman jobs, custom homes, commercial build out work, remodeling of all different sorts and sizes, And so what I ended up finding, and I can't remember who I had talked to at the time, and I had even brought it up to my small business group, like, should I start to specialize in something specific? And the immediate answer was, well, yeah, because then it's pretty clear to the marketplace, like, what you do and what you don't do. And it actually is clear for me. So that, when I get a call about something, it's something I don't really do, like say a handyman job. I got a guy for that. Like I can refer that work on. I don't feel like I just have to go do the work because someone's calling me. So, last year started to develop that a lot more, and then really start focusing it on like kitchens, basements, and bathrooms, for example, on the residential side. And when and if it's right, we'll look at whole home renovations and additions. And that's pretty much it. Like I start getting calls for other things. If it doesn't align with these service offerings, right? It certainly doesn't align with why I'm doing what I'm doing in the first place. Then it's pretty easy to pass that individual on to someone else. And some of it also was reinforced in a book I read too called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike McCallowitz. Great book. It's all about finding what that niche is, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that answers that question. I think it does.
Yeah, and I think that stems another question, from us is, starting out, how has that changed? I think that a lot of times even in marketing, when we started in marketing, it's kind of one of those things where, what projects can we pick up? And as the years go by and you start to learn what you're good at, what you can do, and you start to specialize.
Kind of hone in on where we have the most experience, where we can add the most value.
So for you guys as just starting out as a general contractor, what have you seen? Have you seen that you just kind of had to start out accepting smaller projects and work your way up to that? Or was it one of those things where right off the bat, you were like, I know we only want to do residential, and we know I only want to do, basements, bathrooms, kitchens, what we're effective on, and start to get into that?
It started off as, this is awesome. I own my own business. I'm just going to go do all of these things.
Yeah.
Not really fully realizing at the time that it's like, it's probably like there's no long-term plan with that. At least it wasn't for me. So it's taken a few years trying all these different types of projects, and we've done everything from building from the ground up, custom homes, commercial build-outs, small repair jobs, installing doors, replacing a couple windows, whatever the case, which again, there's nothing wrong with that kind of a business. It just doesn't align with the things that really excite me the most about what I do, like in the what of what we do.
Yeah.
With remodeling. So when it comes to kitchens, bathrooms, basements, I love doing those projects. They're high value, high impact projects in a residential setting for a homeowner. Same thing with depending on like if you're doing like an addition or Four Seasons rooms. We do that kind of stuff too. It's like adding that extra space and really making a really cool change for someone. So it's taken some time to get to that. But now that I'm there, again, when certain types of projects come through, I can easily say, yeah, that doesn't really align with what we do best. It's not that we can't do it. It's just that's not what we do best. And there's other people that do those things, better than we do, and that's okay. Like I feel confident to say that in business.
Yeah.
Like there's certain jobs I don't have to feel like I need to take, right? Like I want to get good and just stay in my lane kind of thing, and continue to grow that way.
Anthony and I found that out for our marketing agency too. Just right off the bat, we were taking any job we could get, and we were trying to sell how good we were at marketing. But then we'd end up working these projects where, we've got this kind of creep of the scope of work where, we're ending up doing a lot of stuff that is maybe not our specialty. Sure, we can do it.
Right.
But, it's not where we provide the most value necessarily.
Yeah, and marketing I could see is the same kind of thing. When you say marketing, what does that? It could mean so many different things.
Oh, yeah.
100%. So we know you do things a little bit differently with your process, and that's been something that you guys have been working on for a long time. So tell us about your, what you've developed now, your 3D experience, which is what some people would probably consider, design to build.
Sure.
So tell us about how you've developed that and how that's kind of played a key role for you and your success.
Yeah. So, one thing that I've learned, and I can't, I'm trying to think of the actual quote. It's something to the effect of like we don't rise to the level of our skills. Maybe I'm saying this wrong. Someone correct me. We fall to the level of our systems.
Right.
Meaning we're only as good as the systems that we have in place in business to help support what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, as far as the 3D experience, which is essentially it's a sales process.
Yeah.
Right. It's the life of the client as they go from, first contacting us all the way through to a year after their project's been completed. Like it's, for the most part, it's spelled out. Like what are those steps? So to keep it simple, and add some stickiness to it as far as remembering. I came up with what's called the 3D experience. The 3 Ds stand for dream, design, and deliver. And it's kind of the process that that is the process we go through with our clients and prospects. So when someone it starts with a vision or a dream that's in their head, right? So what I say is you dream it, you the client or the prospect, right? And then in working those things out, then we together collectively design it. And I've helped with that. I offer pre-construction, design services. And it's a paid service, but it's an important aspect of this whole journey, right? Is to go through the design and the selections and things like that. So that's that collective partnership in that second D of design. And then once all those things are figured out, great, I will deliver that to you. So that's the third D. And that's been, what I can say is it's been highly impactful just to have something like that. And I'm not, there's other ones out there too. I mean, having a step-by-step simple process that's easy to remember and easy for me to communicate when I'm talking to somebody new, it helps communicate what we do and how we do things a little differently. And it helps to, if it's a new client or prospect, to understand, oh yeah, these guys, okay, they know what they're talking about. It's not just, just rambling of, when you talk to some other companies, they don't have that. Where do you go? You can't see the path, right?
And I know we've talked in the past too about where people are at along the process. Sometimes they get to an architect first or a designer first or to a contractor first, but with this, you kind of lay out what the road looks like for your remodel. So I think that's really smart to have that direction for somebody.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to having somebody work on your home, it's a big process, right? This person's going to be in my house. They're going to be cutting through walls. They're going to be doing these things. So it's definitely something that having that process, especially for somebody who has no idea about building, a lot of people, they just, that's what you're there for. So I think it adds to your trust factor as well.
That's
as to say, hey, we have a process in place and this process works for everybody. And this is how we help you design that. I think there's a lot of people out there that they have that vision, but they don't know where to start.
That's right.
They don't know who do I go to first. So that was another question. Coming from Donnie's statement, what would you suggest for somebody who has that vision? Do they go to a contractor first? Do they go to a planner, an architect? Or do they try to find someone like you who might offer all of that in one package?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the answer is come talk to me first.
Yeah.
But what I'll say to that, because we do work pretty closely with a couple designers and architects that are the first contact. So really, you can come through it at any angle. The architect I work with has a same kind of initial discovery steps of working with a prospect and kind of some planning, and then getting a contractor involved kind of earlier on in the process. And those jobs have gone great because it's still, at least it's following a process. So it's just a matter of figuring out how we can work within each other's sales model, right, or customer journey. But if I'm telling you now, yes, start with the contractor, okay, because they're going to have the most realistic understanding of what things cost. What the budget should be, right? I'm not saying that architects and designers don't. They do as well. but the contractor is going to be the one that's actually doing the work.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And typically, in my experience, the price is the biggest barrier moving forward on a project. It's just 9 out of 10 times in my experience that's why something doesn't, it stalls. It's because things just cost what they cost, and we've seen insane fluctuations over the last couple of years. So it's not just me, or it's not just the industry that it's contractors just charging high prices. It's supply chain and materials and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, touch on that too. What's it been like as someone who's a general contractor and having to source products and
Supply chain,
supplies?
crazy
What's
past
it?
couple years.
I guess take us back to like pre-COVID. What was it like before, and kind of how did you survive that? Like, that insane level of price fluctuation, because I know I was in the construction industry as well. It's where I got my start in marketing, so we definitely saw that. At a year ago, we were getting contacts asking us for things that are now double, triple, quadruple the price.
Right. So part of that, and to be completely honest, there's not really a ton that I had to change about the way I was doing things before and how I'm doing them now, pre or post COVID or whatever. And I'll explain that in a second. But and this is going to be a lot of this is going to be pretty standard to how other general contracting companies of my size might approach it. Some people have just kind of gone different directions. So where I'm getting at is, anytime I get a new lead or prospect and we start discussing pricing, okay, anything I ever submit to them is only good for 30 days anyway, right? That's where I think bigger contractors and builders and things like that are, they're 6 months to a year out from starting a project and they're holding a price and then it skyrockets like lumber did. Like that's why all of those, organizations had a real hard time, because it's like, well, they were kind of locked into this price months and months ago. At our size and what we do, we don't have to do that. Again, we hold our pricing for 30 days. Plus the other thing is, I don't guess. So when I'm putting together a takeoff for, a takeoff is like labor and materials for a project based on scope of work. Like I look up like whatever the existing price is, like that moment. Right. I don't use worksheets from 3 to 6 months ago, right, or a year ago. It's all up to date. It's all like that day I'm getting today's pricing, and then I have a little wiggle room in there for contingency if that price changes over 30 days. So that's just how I've approached like the materials thing. Plus, one other thing I did implement is not starting certain projects without having the materials on hand.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so, and it's really all about communication at that point. Like cabinets take 3 months to get, right, or 6 months. We're not going to start your job. We just can't. So that's how I've handled some of those things with supply chain and material fluctuation, pricing, and stuff.
Well, I'm not trying to bring up any sore subjects if this question is going to do that, but were you always right on the money with that, being totally prepared, being totally, making sure you're not just guessing, or did you make mistakes along the way?
Oh, yeah. I think we all know the answer to that. When it comes to the bidding and estimating process, there is still more to learn and to get better at. And again, going back to one of the first questions about getting advice from others, I've received lots of really good advice from other contractors that have been doing this a lot longer, decades. Pointing things out, because I've gone to them with my the worksheets I use and stuff. And then I get challenged on it. I just have to be open to it. So yeah, definitely made mistakes, and it's. Now that I'm, coming into 5 years, I have more data I can pull from too. So if you're just starting out, it's tough because you're just figuring out how to do it. When I started, I didn't know exactly. I had a pretty good idea. I'd seen a lot of different things as far as how to put pricing together and make sure estimates are accurate, and that I'm not way overboard, or I'm not like spending my own money to finish a job, which I've had to do. It's just, things happen. It's business,
Yeah. We, I mean, it's similar. I think starting out, overpricing jobs, not as common as underpricing jobs. I think people see more of that. of the like, oh man, this project maybe would have started a little bit and carried out a little bit longer than you would have expected. And you're right. I think it just comes down to experience. So
Yeah.
give us a good example then, I guess, of a time that things worked well through you developing that process. What was like the moment where you were like, okay, I know I'm doing this right. Like, I know we're on the right track now.
Yeah, so it's funny because I as I continue to learn and grow, and as things change, there's always that element of the unknown, and having those kind of, oh shoot, wait, what am I doing again kind of thing, and then it's okay, I'm gonna go figure it out now. So I mean that continually happens, but I think I understand your question. It was last year, and I can't remember. I think it was a colleague of mine challenged me on a few different things around, how I'm running my business. I mean, it was a hard conversation to have, and how I'm pricing things, and I pushed back. Okay, well, what do you do? How would you recommend me do it? Right. So we kind of worked through that, talked through that, and then I actually, one of the things he recommended was read a book. I'm referencing a lot of books here, but it's really impacted my life. I read a book called Profit First, again, Mike Michalowicz, because man, the financial side of things is so important in any business. So understanding, kind of at macro level, how the cash flow and like having a plan, and then getting down to the granular pieces of my business as I'm focusing on the financial piece or looking at that. And once I started implementing that, it didn't take long. So I've got a plan. I follow the Profit First methodology with cash flow. I was challenged to look at my own, how I'm estimating things and how I'm making the money that I need to make to stay in business and to support a family and to be profitable. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we're in a business. That's part of running a business, to have profits, so we can keep growing, keep impacting more people positively through our business. So it was, to be honest, it was the beginning of last summer that it really started to click for me. Not that I didn't have moments before that things that made, but like really getting a handle on the financial piece was huge. It's huge. It just like felt like I finally had my hands on the steering wheel.
Definitely. So going into the financial piece, how would you recommend for somebody who wants to start in that industry, start general contracting or construction, anything, how would you recommend they start from a financial perspective? Is that something that you've built up over time? Is that something you go and you look to have investors? I mean, there's so many different.
Or did you get a loan?
And there's so many different options, and we just want to hear from somebody who has done it, and just what are the options for people when it comes to that kind of job? Like, how do they go about getting the equipment? Is that something that you have sourced out with your subcontractors, and you have shops, things like that? Those are some of the things that as we start to build businesses and as your business starts to grow, obviously it'll start to all come to fruition. But what would you recommend to start, for somebody who's just starting?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough because it really, to some degree, it depends on what you're going after.
Yeah.
One of my business coaches and friend of mine would say things like, scale slow to grow smart. So being on the more conservative end with buying equipment or vehicles or other things that are nice things to have in business, like maybe it's an office space or a shop or something like that. I mean, I don't currently have one right now because I don't necessarily need it. I want it really, really badly because it'd be nice to get out of my garage and my driveway space, and I know all my guys would appreciate it too. And we're working towards those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's taking things step by step. Now, as far as the financial side of it, though, I mean, you're gonna, in any business, you're gonna need seed money. By God's grace, we were fortunate enough to have a family friend who has helped us with the financial piece. So I mean, there is debt, like just kind of comes with the territory, at least in this world, and in my experience. Are there ways to do it without it? Absolutely. It might take a little longer.
Yeah.
Because you're literally going from job to job. You don't you're scraping by,
Right.
And I have I've experienced some of that, but I've been fortunate enough to have somebody who's financially supporting. I still have to pay him back though. Like you got to, it's debt.
Yeah.
So and I was fortunate not to have to go to a bank. When you start going to a financial institution, then you have to have some pretty solid business plans, and to provide them so that you can have give a good reason why you're asking for $100,000 or 50, whatever it is. Not to say I didn't have a business plan. I mean, I did.
Right.
It was just a little more loosely held because it's I got
Yeah, they go.
a family friend that was willing to help us out.
They go deep when it comes to
Yes, they
come
do.
to that. Yeah,
Not writing blank checks. Let me tell you. But it seems like you place a really high value on the influence of your mentors, of your colleagues, and on books too. I mean, I know you've been, every time we ask about what lessons you've learned, that's kind of what you hearken back to. So I appreciate that, and I kind of was wondering if you wanted to speak to that. Like how was there a time in your life where you weren't looking at your mentors or asking questions?
Yeah, so, and part of it might have been because of the type of role I was in prior to me starting my business. I was, and this is not, I'm not complaining. This is just my observation of how it was. I was the one person in my department. I was a one department person, kind of isolated from the rest of the daily functions of the organization I worked at.
Yeah.
Not there's, I did well. It was good. I did a lot of great things there. But coming out of that, I didn't have, I don't know, I didn't necessarily have the perspective of I'm going to go ask as many people as I can for help. No, I'm just going to pull myself up by the bootstraps and figure it out on my own, the American way, I guess. At least, the perceived American way. Like asking for help is, it's like there's something wrong with you if you're asking for help. I found the complete opposite. If you think you know it all and you're not asking for, something is going to go drastically wrong. And a lot of that really started to change for me 5.5 years ago, just on a personal side, certain things going on, and me kind of, it was actually from that kind of prompted us to think about starting a business. But yeah, admitting that I don't know anything or that I don't know anything. I don't know everything. Let me correct myself. I know some things.
It's a fine
Still
line.
Yeah. And having, I value humility. And so humility to me is being able to admit I don't know something and then seeking help for it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it's played a huge role. Yeah.
I think as men, we're very, we want to do it ourselves. So to find that, I mean, I struggle with that too. I mean, asking for help when you need it, but gosh, some of the biggest and most important decisions in my life have been something I've consulted, from a mentor and just, things like that. That I think that's a pivotal change, especially
For sure.
Taking your future into your hands and
That's
everything.
right. That's right.
Definitely.
And having others to help along the way.
Do you have any lessons, from all that you've learned that you could give to people that are in this construction industry, in the general contracting industry? Do you have any, key moments or key lessons where, you have anything you could just give? Because a lot of, people want to know what are those lessons, and I think that hearing from people that are in that industry and have done it before is very helpful for people to take that information in and let it soak before they go out there and make their decisions.
Yeah, so just kind of general lessons learned
General lessons learned,
Yeah.
100%.
And some of it I've sort of touched on, but as far as real pivotal things for me, joining that Convene group was huge.
So joining networking groups and being more involved in the community, finding mentors.
Correct. And Convene's been able to be a big part of that for me. And that's more of an advisory board. It's like being part of BNI is also been helpful as far as having business relationships and connections. I got a guy, right?
Yeah.
Convene has been great for the coaching and mentorship, and then having other board members advise on my business and then me be able to give that back to them has been a huge impact. And it doesn't have to be Convene. I mean, there's other business-focused groups, so it's getting connected into that. Because one of the biggest things, is in leadership, in life, whatever it is, owning a business, I can't do all of this by myself as much as I think I can, or that it would be some huge accomplishment to do it. Can't. And I'm realizing I don't want to. Like, I want to bring people along the way with me. So it's getting connected, and whatever way works best for your industry, your personality, things like that, your belief systems, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, that's a slightly selfish reason why we started the podcast, because we hope to get that kind of wisdom and that kind of
Sure.
Mentorship, advice, and everything from successful business owners.
Yeah, definitely. So, and let me ask you this: from a geographical aspect, what advice do you give people who, obviously are just starting out? I think that a lot of work when it comes to what we do also goes into, like, well, where are you located and the culture or the influence of where you're at. Have you found it to be hard in our area? For those that know, we're in the Chicagoland area. Have you found it to be good, hard, easy to get more of those programs in place and find that networking? And how do people search for that? What would be a good way for people to find out exactly how you did it?
As far as getting involved with, like, specific
getting involved in those
business groups and things,
yeah. How did you get into that, and how did you find it from a geographical area? How did you get into that?
Yeah, so like I said, I mentioned earlier, 5.5 years ago or so, it was actually the person I used to work for, the owner of the company I used to work for, as I was going through a few different things. He had recommended me to get involved with a men's ministry, men's group called the Crucible Project. Won't go into too many specifics about that. So I was like, hey, I need this stuff. Let's do it. Did a weekend retreat. It was awesome. Completely changed my life. Still involved with them, and so it was the invitation from him that kind of got me connected there. Now, it was one of my friends that I've met through that group that suggested I connect to Convene, right? So that's how I got involved with Convene. So it was just kind of word of mouth. Like I knew I needed something specific to helping me in figuring out the problems and the opportunities in my business. And one of my buddies that I met through the Crucible Project ministry, men's groups, he suggested Convene. As far as BNI goes, that was I had heard about it because it's a kind of it's a global, well-known organization for referral marketing and stuff. And when we had just opened, I was connected. I got connected with a flooring contractor, and it was the sales rep there that invited me to my first BNI group down in the south suburbs. So it's just like talking to people, and being open to things, and someone's inviting me to go to something. Like, sure, I'll try it out. I'll go to one of your meetings.
You're just
Why
saying
not?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being that we're in Chicagoland, it's the third largest market in the country. So there's no shortage of those types of things around here when it comes to business groups and networking groups and coaches and trainers and mentors. They're out there. It's
Yeah, 100%. And we appreciate you telling us about that and giving us that advice. And I think that it's going to add a lot of value for people coming in and wanting to know those things. So let's talk about more of, like, your future plans now. What are some future plans that you have that you're preparing for, whether it's in service, some future goals you might have? We'll probably go into a couple things, but start out. Let us know what any good projects you have that you're working on, or some future upcoming projects as well.
Yeah, in terms of types of projects, we're working on a couple different ones right now. We were out there the other day, completely gutted the interior of this house, part of an insurance claim. a car slammed into the side of this house and did a bunch of damage, and
Wow.
insurance is covering pretty much rebuilding the entire interior, not necessarily changing wall layouts and stuff, but that'll be an interesting. Thankfully, like the homeowner, like nobody was living in the house at the time when the car hit it, but that's a really interesting one we got going on. We're doing a second story addition right now, so excited about that. Just the story behind that with the homeowners is they're really wanting to expand their family, and so they don't want to move. They love their house, but it's just there's not enough space, so they are able to build up, and it's just really cool to be a part of that story for them and provide that. So that's on that side of things. Yeah, we've got lots of different projects. Basements, another sounds like a really large overhaul renovation addition coming up. We'll see. It's got a lead in today about a custom home, so I'll take a look at those kind of things too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then on the business development side, I mean the marketing I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
Just continuing to move forward with that because I really believe in what we're doing and how we can positively impact people, and I want people to know that. And marketing that's the microphone, right? It's
Yeah.
more the megaphone that's sending out the messages to people to connect. So
Yeah, and just for a little context too, Anthony and I have been working with Micah now to sort of revamp his brand a little bit. We just kind of got finished up on his website. We're going to be working on, we talked about that faucet, turning on that faucet, kind of pumping the content out there, but putting that message forward that you want, the world to see you, how we want the world to see you.
Yep.
But yeah, I was kind of wondering too. Obviously, you got a lot coming down the pipe, but do you have broader goals for your business, like a 3-year, a 5-year, a 10-year plan?
Sure. Yeah, and it's interesting you ask because I've recently read the book called The 12-Week Year, which is a great book, by the way. There's a lot of book recommendations here. And a lot of it, there's a lot of like planning involved. It's basically condensing what you think you can accomplish in a year into 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And then doing that every 12 weeks, and then you get so much more done. So part of that is looking at like a 3, 5, 10, 15-year plan kind of thing. And my hopes is, and I have to hit certain, sales goals to be able to financially make this happen, but, I'd like to start to bring some more personnel to help support the business. And we kind of touched on that earlier. Like, yeah, it scares me to do that. I think it scares a lot of people to do. My assumption is it scares a lot of people to do that, to bring someone in to help manage part of their business. So for me, the project management and site supervision might be a potential hire within the next year or so. Potentially administrative help. There's just a lot, as things pick up. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of different things, a lot of following up on things that I could use some support for. So that would be the next 3 years. I can see starting to bring more people on board to help with some of that.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 year, that as I look out that far, I can see a larger team of people. I see having a dedicated space with a warehouse and potentially like showroom space, a meeting space that we can bring people in. Maybe a fleet of vehicles with Red Cloud on it, and a couple supervisors and a number of, skilled craftsmen working for us, and there's obviously like sales goals I'd like to potentially see.
Right.
At some point, it'd be great to hit like $10 million. I mean, it's I think
Now
in revenue, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
of course.
If it's profit, great too. Like I'll take it, but
Oh,
no,
yeah.
on overall revenue, I think it's
Right.
and I think it's possible. I think it's possible if we stay on the current trajectory.
Yeah,
I think we're
definitely.
getting close.
So where do you operate then? What are your locations and what's your service area? Because I know a lot of people are probably going to be wondering, like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, where is Red Cloud and where do you operate out of, and what's your limits or boundaries per se?
Yeah, so home base is Aurora, Illinois, simply because that's where I live. And like I said before, my shop is at my house, which is probably pretty similar to a lot of companies my size. And in terms of our service area, I mean, it's most of Chicagoland. We try to avoid going into the city of Chicago. It's just a lot different.
Harder with permitting.
There's permitting can always be difficult depending on which municipality you're in, but it's just access.
Yeah.
It's access and familiarity, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Part of it is I grew up in the suburbs, so I'm just comfortable with being in the suburbs. I did live in the city for a minute back in the day, but it's different. There's city and then there's the burbs, right?
Yeah.
We all kind of from Chicagoland, we know that. So yeah, I mean we'll travel, you know, like just kind of give perspective. We've got a job coming up in Lombard. We're up in Bartlett right now. We're out in Roselle. We're down in Oswego, in Aurora, as I mentioned. Looking at a job in is it Hampshire, which is, you know,
It's like McHenry County, I think.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and it's in the guys that I have working with me. I mean, we're not all from Aurora. Like we're kind of spread out too. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of the gig. We understand if you're driving 45 minutes, maybe an hour one way, it's just the job. Now, once we start getting over that, then there's factoring in travel time because you're just getting into.
Well, that's where your new fleet comes in. Right?
That's right.
So
That's
how
right.
do you, given that you got jobs all over the area, how do you manage that? What's like what's some advice on people that are, you know, maybe they're just starting to get into that where, hey, we've got one job and now we're picking up on another, and this is our first go around at managing these crews and managing different job locations. What's some advice you have for people to manage that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing, at least for me, actually there's two big things. But honestly, one is probably bigger than the other one, and that's having people you can trust, having good subcontractors and a good lead person to be the eyes and ears, so that if, you know, like as we're speaking here now, I have 3 different jobs all going on today, you know, and I've planned it out to touch base on a couple of them, which I already have before he came here, and I'll have one more before, you know, after I leave. But I've just developed those relationships with these guys. I trust them. I trust what they're doing. If there's issues, that they let me know. Or if they have questions, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Like, if you ever have any hesitation, just ask, right? So it's following some of those rules. And then the other piece that has been impactful for me is you know, weekly and daily plans. So just not every plan goes the way I want every day, but it's good that every morning I sit down and I plan my day out per 30 minutes. You know, now, granted, it's block scheduling, right? So I might today I'm blocking off a couple hours, so it's not like I know exactly what I'm doing every 30 minutes, but it's in 30-minute increments. So I've found to be able to feel like there's more control.
Yeah.
Or an understanding that, like, here's the vision for the day or for the week, and I have contingency plans when I know it's not always going to go that way. Right?
Yeah.
So.
No, that's great, and I think you know, in terms of the value that you've provided for people, I think it's going to serve a lot of listeners here, because you know, us knowing, kind of being in the same realm of, you know, we do different things, but when it comes to business, everything is kind of done similarly. You know, so
Sure.
it's definitely great to hear from somebody who's in that position, has, you know, done it before, has got their business off the ground, and now is in that position to be able to give advice. And that's what we're all about. You know, we want people to be able to come and listen to this podcast and be able to get something out of it. You know, whether it's a decision that they're trying to make. Do I start a business? Do I get a job first? You know, maybe they're trying to transition. You know, is it, hey, I have this job, but, you know, I have this dream of owning my business and I don't know when to start. You know, I think that's what we're all about here, is helping answer those questions and giving insights. So we want to thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Definitely.
Yeah, anybody listening needs a kitchen, a basement, a bathroom. You know,
Yep.
Micah and Red Cloud Contracting, they do really professional work. You know, check out his new website that we just got finished building, so we can, you know, we got old jobs on there with really good pictures, and you
Yep.
can really get a feel for what he does.
Yep, www.redcloudcontracting.com. So anybody who's interested, head on to the website and take a look.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Micah.
Oh,
Seriously.
thank you guys. That's
Awesome.
been great.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Off the Ground podcast with the GW Branding Group. Again, I'm Donny.
I'm Anthony.
Go check out our website, www.gwbrandinggroup.com. Follow us on social media.
Yep, we also have a new website coming. It is www.offthegroundpodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We're going to be on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. So it's going to be great, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in.